Hi guys, this is Sai Kumar Kurtuwada. This is my new series that is mastering of our web development. So here what we cover exactly, I'll cover basics of HTML, basics of CSS, basics of JavaScript and basics of Angular. Basics in the sense I will cover most of the topics which will be used in our real time and which are used for our interview purpose. So this series will mainly used for the person who starts a web development freshly without any knowledge, that is zero knowledge, and what you will achieve after seeing this whole web development series. So after watching this you will understand what exactly we have to do for web development, and you can even build your own web development, and also you will try to understand things in a simple way and you can crack any type of interviews. So after this series, we will also target for interview series, but first you have to know all the basics. And the folks who completed their education, this will give complete information and he can do from end to end. So before going to that, what is a web development and what are the things you have to know? So that will cover in this video, and what is the roadmap of this particular series. So let me quickly jump into one of the presentation, and a disclaimer note, I created a presentation which is not exactly the real-time presentation, but I came up with a presentation where the people can understand in a simple way. So there may be some stories which has been built on top of it, so please ignore that, but you try to understand how and why we came up with all these languages. Let me jump into my presentation. Here, if you see, this quote creates whole web development as per me. This is a quote which was given by Steve Jobs, and try to understand this quote. You will understand this whole quote in the last. You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. So remember this statement. We'll prove this statement by end of this particular video. So let me go into the next slide. First, before going to HTML, CSS, blah, 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 we have to understand about history of our internet. In the starting, we don't have any internet communication. In 1960, internet has been created, and the first thing which created was email, and later we came up with websites, all the browsers, engines, and whenever we started World Wide Web, later we came up with Wi-Fi, where you don't need a fiber connection and directly you can communicate with the people. So this is what the history of internet. You have to know about this, because now why we are using web development to communicate with the people, to communicate with some other people, you need an interface. That's where the web development came in. So first you have to understand internet. Without internet, web development is nothing. So that's why I gave a brief about history of internet. Let me go into the next slide. Here, Berners-Lee. So Berners-Lee is the person who started this web development. So why he started, let's talk about a brief. This is a story which was created by me for understanding purpose. Let's try to understand. In the ancient times, the communication between the people used to go with birds. For example, if king want to send some set of information to another kingdom or another place, then they used to use some set of parrots or birds to transfer the data from one place to another place by tying their note onto that particular birds. Now, later the technology grown, and we came up with different types of strategies like postmans. So here the transfer of data happened with the postman. He used to take the letters from one place and he used to give the letters to another place, and there also the communication happened. But there is a grow in that communication. If you give for a birds, they may or may not give that letter to a appropriate person, or it may reach to the destination or it may not reach the destination. It's like dilemma. Whereas postman, at least they could receive the data, but it takes some time, maybe 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, based on your distance of the destination, but for sure it will reach. So we have improved that it is getting reached over there. Later we came up with communicating with computers. So whenever they started communicating with computers, they started printing these papers and they used to send the data to other persons in a speeder way. But later they felt like, okay, why we are communicating like this? Instead, why can't we communicate between the machines? So then they started with an email where they can send the data between the systems. But at that time, we don't have an user interface where cannot create or write in a proper way. We have to make more struggles to write some set of emails. So then Berners-Lee came up with an idea where they want to build a website where they can use that websites and they want to transfer the data to other places. So that's where W3C, that is a World Wide Web Consortium team, they came together and started as a group of people and they build this HTML. And now HTML is the one language which used to build your websites. So let me go into the next slide. HTML. Let's talk about HTML. What is HTML? HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. You will learn the things with the element format like this. We will always use the language in an element format which is having a tags. So one will have a opening tag and closing tag, and how to write them we will see in the upcoming videos. But there is a language which was created in 1991, and that is nothing but hypertext markup language. Then they came up with different types of versions of HTML. That means they have upgraded, they have deprecated few features, they have enhanced some features, they have added new features, and at last we came up with HTML5. And we are listening nowadays like HTML6 is also coming into picture, but HTML5 is a stable version and it was launched in October 2014, and till now we are using HTML5. So we'll also talk about the different types of HTML versions and what came in the new versions and what has been deprecated in the new versions. We'll talk about that in the future. Now we know about hypertext markup language. Now let me go into CSS. Before going to CSS, why CSS came in? Actually, before CSS you can do many things, like with HTML, basic HTML itself you can do, or you can build whole your application without any CSS. But why CSS came in picture? So whenever a customer comes to your website, he has to feel that okay, this website is very good and it should be very attractive. Before, if you see, this is an Alibaba, this is also Alibaba website. It is an previous website where we didn't came up with more CSS on that. If you see here, that this is like a newspaper, but when they came up with all these new technologies, they have improvised and they have given an design for your application and it became more attractive. That is called as CSS. So CSS stands for cascading style sheets. What it does is it will add styles to your HTML content. It is like you are making a makeup for your HTML elements. That is what CSS came in. So CSS will give you attractiveness for your application. So let me go to the next one, web browsers. Try to understand these web browsers. Actually speaking, we spoke about communication between the things, but how you want to communicate? You need a centralized way. Wherever I go, I want to communicate. So they created some set of browsers to communicate and to create or to host this particular websites. So that's where web browsers came in. And the first web browser is Internet Explorer. Later we came up with Opera, Google Chrome, Safari, Microsoft Edge and Mozilla Firefox. Nowadays most of the people are going with Google Chrome and Microsoft Edge. Internet Explorer is bit low, but still we need that because some of the applications won't support the latest browsers. So in that cases you have to go with the Internet Explorer. Safari, it is especially designed for Mac OS. Let me go into the next slide. So let's understand web servers. Actually speaking, whenever you design a website, it can be accessed anywhere from any of the browser. So where that is hosted? That is hosted at the web server. So web server is a centralized system where you can access that host or access that particular websites directly by communicating with your web servers. So this is something like where it holds all the website informations. So let me go into the next slide. Communication between web browser and web server, how it happens. That's where internet comes into picture. So whenever you are sitting home, just you browsed something, you will be getting not found. Because if you want to access any of the website, it has to reach your web server. If you want to reach your web server, you should have an internet. That's where the Wi-Fi internet is also very important whenever you are talking about web development. So you will send a request to your internet. Internet will go and communicate with web server, and web browser will respond you with some set of data, and that you will be seeing on your system. That is nothing but user interface. Let me go into the next slide. So we are talking about communication, but how does this happen? This happens with your JavaScript. Now, what JavaScript do? Actually speaking, this JavaScript is the one which gave the power for your HTML and CSS. HTML and CSS are just for UI purpose. That means for look and feel. But how the operations are going on. For example, you have a login page. You tried to type some Gmail, but you didn't give a proper format for the Gmail. Immediately you will be getting an error. Who is doing that? JavaScript is doing that. And whenever you type something and submit it, the details, whatever you have filled in that details, how that details are going back to the server, web server. It is reaching web server via internet, but who is sending to the internet? JavaScript is the person who is sending to the internet. So that's where JavaScript plays a major role in this web development, and it is the one which changed the whole world, and it is on the top level till 2024. So we are on the top by using JavaScript. So what JavaScript can do? JavaScript can do many things. One of the thing is JavaScript gives HTML designers a programming tool. That means it can control your HTML, and it can also used for dynamic text transitions, and it also listens to your events. For example, if you click on a button, who is listening it? It is listened by JavaScript, and JavaScript can read and write HTML content. That means you can get the response from the internet, and that is hosted to your web browser. Who is hosting that? Who is the middleware between that? JavaScript is a middleware. It can also use to validate your data. For example, as I said, you have an email, you have a phone number. Who is validating it? Before JavaScript, we use it to validate everything in the backend, and we use it to give more load to the web servers. So whenever you are giving more load to the web servers, your servers or your website will be very slow to communicate with the people. So we have reduced that load level onto the front end by validating all the data or all the possible data in your front end itself. Once it is validated, then you are sending the data. For example, if you are seeing a Gmail, whenever you have email and a password, you didn't enter the password and submitted, it will not request anything to the web server until you enter your password, and once you enter your password, you will be sending the data to the web server. So that is about your JavaScript. There also it uses the JavaScript. And for example, if you try to search something in Amazon, you searched something in Amazon and you saw some products, immediately if you go to Instagram, if you go to Facebook, you will be seeing the same similar products and attracting the people. How they are doing? They are trying to detect your visitor's browser. So that also, that detection can also be done by using JavaScript. So these are the few things which can be done by JavaScript, and there are many more things where JavaScript can do. So let me go to the next one. So advantages of JavaScript. If you see, it is an object-oriented language. It is versatile. It is platform independent. That means if you run in one browser, it works. If you run in Safari, it works. If you run in Chrome, it works. So everywhere it works, and even it doesn't matter about Mac or Windows or Linux. So everywhere it works. Less server interaction. As I mentioned, whenever you are interacting with the server, we made that less server interaction because we are validating in the front end itself. Once everything is valid, then we are sending the request to the backend. So we reduced some server interaction. Rich interface. For example, if you want to go with an animations, if you want to render something like errors or warnings, you are doing with JavaScript, and it is easy to grasp the syntax. For example, if you want to understand JavaScript, he can easily understand by using the syntax of JavaScript. That means the syntax will be very simple and readable. So that's where JavaScript is very easy. So we can also say that it is very efficient in performance. There are many more, like thousands and millions of websites on your browser were running on JavaScript. That means if it not gives good performance, so no one will start using JavaScript. So it gives us efficient performance. Let me go to the next slide. Now, what are the type of applications which I can implement if I learn JavaScript? So if you learn JavaScript, you can design websites, web applications, presentations, server applications, web servers, robots, mobile applications, smartwatches, arts, and games. So if you go to the flying robots, why I mentioned is artificial intelligence and machine learning. There is some set of JavaScript libraries which can be used for AI and ML. So like TensorFlow is one of the JavaScript library which can be used for creating your machine learning. Mobile apps, Ionic, React Native, All this comes under the mobile app. And smartwatches app, like embedded systems also we can use by using JavaScript. We can also develop the gaming applications by using JavaScript. Already we mentioned like web applications. It is very easy to develop web applications and websites. And even JavaScript is not only used for front end, even it can be used for back end by using Node.js. So Node.js also becoming more and more famous. So that's how JavaScript you can use for number of applications, and you can develop any number of applications. So you should be very clear, like if you learn JavaScript, if you are not working on web applications now, in the future you can go to the backend by using web servers. You can develop your own server applications. So learning JavaScript will not be any problem in future. You can jump from one tech stack to another tech stack by using JavaScript. You can work on front end, you can work on back end, you can work on machine learning, you can work on artificial intelligence, embedded systems, everywhere JavaScript presents. So that is the reason we can learn JavaScript. So let me go into the next slide. Here, how browsers understand JavaScript? That's a big question for us. So we are talking about HTML, CSS, JavaScript and everything, but how JavaScript is understanding it? There are some set of engines designed for running that browsers to understand. Actually speaking, whole browsers or whole machines can understand only machine code, but how to understand your syntax to that machine code, or how we can convert that, that's where we come across JavaScript engines. So each and every browser has their own engines. For Edge it is Chakra, for Firefox we have SpiderMonkey, for Chrome we have V8, and among this all, V8 is a powerful engine. And coming to SpiderMonkey, if you see, most of the people always go with the Chrome. Why? Because it is more efficient and performative. Nowadays we heard like even Microsoft Edge is trying to migrate from Chakra to V8 engine in their browsers to make more performative. So that's how Chrome engine is the most popular engine. Engine will convert your JavaScript code into machine code, and it makes your browser to understand this. And let me go into the next slide. I can understand we are talking more about all different types of new set of things. Let's understand in a simple way. So we have talked about web browsers, web servers, engines, and then HTML, CSS, JavaScript. So I'll make it very simple with one diagram. So let me go here. Let us understand in a simple way. So what we are doing here is a person who is trying to do, or who is trying to communicate with some sort of browser. Here is a browser. He is typing with some domain or a website URL, and then once he hit enter, it immediately goes to the www, that means internet. And once it reaches the internet via HTTP request, your web server will listen to it. It understands your request, and then it sends a response via internet, and that you can see on your browser. So that's where the user can interact with your browser. This is what happening. For this sake we have to learn. If you see, whatever you are seeing over here, that is nothing but HTML, CSS, and whatever you are trying to send the data to the internet, that is by JavaScript. And once it is received by your web server will respond to you. Again, this response will be received by JavaScript, and that JavaScript will be the responsible person to show the data on your UI. So at last we came up with JavaScript, and it is shown in the UI, and that will be visible by the user. So that's about your JavaScript and HTML flow, how it happens. Now let me go into the next slide. This comes under web development. So whatever we are doing, whatever the project you are doing, it will be with this format, with this architecture. Other than this, we will not go with any of the architectures. So they may be dividing that in middle, but at last this is the whole concept of web development. So that's about your web development. Now we spoke about HTML, CSS, JavaScript and all this stuff, but why we came up with Angular, React or many more libraries? Let me go into the next slide. So is JavaScript only for front end? As I mentioned, no. You can use for TensorFlow. By using TensorFlow, you can use for machine learning, Node.js for backend, front end. You can use Angular, React, web development, HTML, CSS for front end. So like this, we can use everywhere this JavaScript. Let me go to the next slide. So now let's understand about the framework and library. So in general, for example, if you consider React is a library, Angular is a framework. Why we are differentiating these two? Library means it will do only one set of tasks. So if you go to the library, you should take the book, you should read and come out. It may be any person, he has to do the same thing. But framework is not like that. It can do multiple things at a time. That means if you are working with React, if you want any routing feature or navigation feature, then you have to pull React router and put it on top of React and you have to use it. You have to add the features for utilizing some set of features. But framework is not like that. It provides some set of data and some set of concepts that you can use. And if you want to add something on top of it, you can pull some set of library and push it to the framework. Framework is a collection of libraries, and library is something like a particular task will be done by the library. Let me go into the next slide. So here, what are front-end libraries and frameworks which are in JavaScript? We have many more JavaScript libraries and frameworks. If you see, we have GWT, jQuery, Knockout.js, EXT.js, Ember.js, Can.js, we have React.js, Vue.js, Angular, Reactive.js. So like this, we have many more libraries. But do I need to learn everything? So now you are in a confusion. Do I need to learn all the libraries and the frameworks? No, absolutely no. As per 2023, we have three top most frameworks, that is Angular, React and Vue.js. As of 2024 or 2023, these are the top three libraries and frameworks which we can use for our web development. So Angular and React. So coming to this two, I worked on three of this: React, Angular and Vue.js. So I cannot say that this is the topmost one. It depends on the requirement of your project and what level of project you are working on. If you are working on UI enthusiastic project, we prefer to go with React. And if you want to go with some set of ERP level of application, I prefer to go with Angular. And whatever the problems we have in the Angular and React, they were solved in Vue.js. And one of the problem in Angular is every 6 months there will be a new release for Angular. That is one of the big drawback of Angular. But even for every 6 months it is growing a lot. So that means this framework is getting lot more. And even coming to the GitHub stars or GitHub downloads, if you see, Vue.js is also on the top, React is also on the top, Angular is also on the top. Now, if I learn any of this, can I learn other? Like for example, I know Angular, then I can learn React and Vue? Yes, absolutely yes. You can learn React, you can learn Vue.js, because the conceptual part is same around all these particular applications. But they changes few things internally by the engine and also syntactical changes. So you have to know that syntactical changes and how to use, when to use and what to use. So that you have to be very clear. Now, even solid.js is one of the library which is coming in boom after React. Why? Because it is similar to React but more performative compared to React. We have some problems in React, even that problems were solved in solid.js. I made a tutorial for this. You can see my tutorial. I'll provide the link in the description for complete solid.js tutorial. And also I made a complete understanding of Angular from a basic to advanced level, that is 0 to hero. I made all the concepts which are required for Angular. We have many more which are coming in particular tutorial. I'll provide the link in the description. Please watch that as well. Now we are done with the understanding of JavaScript and HTML and CSS. Now let me go to the first quote. So I mentioned this, why you have to remember this. If you see, we went one by one. One is HTML, one is CSS, one is JavaScript and one is Angular. If you go forward, we are coming up with new technology. But if you combine all this, you will be getting a product, and that product is web development. So that means you started with HTML, you started with CSS, then you went to JavaScript, then you went to Angular. If you combine all this in a backward direction, then you can go with a big achievement, that is web development. So we have each and every dot. We can consider each and every language as a dot. HTML one dot, CSS one dot, JavaScript one dot, and then you have Angular as one dot. So after connecting this, you will be getting a good product. So dots will somehow connect in your future, and this is the dots which I made these connections, and that's how we came up with a new product called as web development. So this will give you a brief understanding of HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Again, I am telling that there is a disclaimer note. Some of them are real and some of them are added story by me to understand for the people in a easy manner. So let me show you what is a roadmap of this series. The roadmap is very simple. I want to go with basics understanding of HTML, CSS. and JavaScript, then we will go with Angular, and then we will be developing our web development. Then what is meant by basic? It is not like one or two classes of JavaScript, one or two classes of CSS, one or two classes of HTML. We go with deeper understanding wherever it is required, and few of the elements or few of the HTML content we don't use in our real time, that I'll try to ignore in the sense we will be doing in the future but not in this series. So you can ask any questions in the comments. I'll try to do all the videos whatever you want, but this series is about a basic understanding and how you can develop a web development. And if you go to an interview with this particular concept, you will for sure crack the interview. So that's the target of this particular series. Hope you will be liking these videos and you will be encouraging me a lot. Stay tuned for whole series. You will enjoy this series. Thank you. Hope you like my explanation. If you like my video, like, share, subscribe to my channel for more updates. Signing off. Thank you.